Hey.
Hey YouTube, I'm Kenneth Ryan.
I'm Linz Resop.
And welcome back to the penultimate episode of Fanfiction Friday's Star Wars: The New Galaxy by Cloud411.
We're going to read 4 chapters no matter how long it takes us.
Yep, we're going to read the first 4 chapters. So we're
into the final the last 8 chapters. And we're going to read 4 a day.
And then 4
next
week. And that's how we're going to do this. Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to jump right in with chapter 51, Darth Palin's Move. Oh no, should I read? Doesn't matter, do you care?
I don't care.
Okay. Darth Palin sat atop a massive mountain overlooking an incredible city, alive with life at such a late hour. Hey, you're setting this fic on planet Earth. You know what you can do? Here is the mountain. It has a name. Here's the city, which also has a name. Beautiful correlation.
They might be trying to keep it secret where they are right now.
That's
Who knows?
silly.
Also, possibly not.
He sat cross-legged in meditation, reaching out with the Force to feel everything that was happening in the world. He had taken a back seat since this war started. He could care less about the Force Army's goals of Force human superiority or the World Army's goals of world peace and unity. He had not spoken to Rick or had any affiliation with the Guardians in the 5 years that had passed since this petty war began.
So it's a little bit more.
So there's a time jump, and now it's 5 years later.
So it's like 11 months past the last time.
Something like that.
Because it'd been 4 years in the war,
and then 1 month,
a month, and now it's 5 years.
Jesus Christ! The only thing that he had been doing was watching the war through the power of the Force. So if we assume this fic started in 2008, we are now 13 years past that. So we are now in 2021. We are in the future for us.
Yep.
In terms of where this is happening.
Yep.
God, we have a lot to look forward to.
Yep.
We're going to have, laser weapons and midichlorian vaccines, and, that's going to be cool. He has been particularly interested in Salvador's growth since he beat him 5 years ago. In that time since, Salvador has done nothing but grow in strength and power. Soon he will be worthy of a rematch with Palin, a rematch that will end in the death of one of the combatants. Reaching out further with the Force, he could feel something, a danger that will soon approach Salvador. He reached out further with the Force in order to determine what it was he was feeling. Rick was planning to launch an extremely massive attack with the world's army against Salvador's main command ship
you can just
that will
sense this
soon
with the
be in
Force.
the air. Yeah, I guess.
I'm reaching out with the Force. Oh, I know all of their plans.
I know the future. Yeah, I guess the Force just does whatever you want. That's actually, I think, the Force just does whatever you want it to.
Basically.
And that's how they justify it.
They're all just gods. They're omnipotent.
That would soon be in the air. He stood up. He could not let Salvador die yet. He still had to face him one more time.
So is Palin going to kill Rick?
He whipped around, turning his
Very
back to the beautiful city and walking off into the night, determined to put a stop to Rick's plan. He stalked up to the front of the massive mansion that houses the president of the world. The mansion was held in a remote place, the location of which was only known by a select few. Nothing is hidden from the Force, however. Anyone who reached far enough could locate this place. It was surrounded by several mountain ranges that shielded it from view of anyone who passed by.
But not overhead.
Yeah, right?
And also, what giant city has mountains and secret mansions?
I don't think it actually exists, which is why they're not naming a location. I think
Yes.
they're making this up, and they're like, shit, there's no place on Earth that's fuck. Just leave it vague. Just leave it vague.
Mountain ranges that intersect with, a secret, a random area in the center that has a giant city nearby.
Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah. And also, why would you have your secret mansion by a big city?
Secret, I guess. There were guards all around the mansion, all armed with laser rifles. He marched up to the front door and was bombarded by bodyguards of the president. 10 guards blocked his passage into the mansion.
Who are you? One of the guards demanded. Palin unclipped his lightsaber hilt from his belt and ignited the red blade.
The last person you will see alive, he answered, moving forward and striking down 5 of 10 with a few well-placed and balanced strikes. The remaining 5 returned fire with their laser rifles, all of which were defeated by Palin's lightsaber blade. Deflected, you're right. He sent the lasers back into the chest of 4 of the guards, who collapsed to the ground, dead. Palin reached out with the force and grabbed the remaining guard by the neck, slowly squeezing the life out of him. "Where is he hiding?" he asked the guard in a menacing voice.
Why would the guard tell him?
The guard grabbed his throat, trying to breathe and gasping for breath.
"Second floor, study," he whispered. Why did the guard tell him?
He's not a good guard.
There was the sound of a loud crack, and the guard's body fell lifelessly to the ground.
He thought maybe he'd take mercy. I don't know.
He's not going to let you live. Using the force, Palin jumped to the second level and through the glass window. Why don't you just walk up the stairs?
Yeah.
He landed on the second floor, piece of glass following him. He stood up and looked around. He was in a 3-way hallway. What?
Okay.
There was a path to his right, left, and in front of him. What? What kind of mansion is this? All of
labyrinth.
which had several more guards running and shooting at him. He deflected the lasers with his lightsaber and threw the guards to his right back with the force. He whipped around and sent a wall of lightning scorching all the guards down the hall that was to his left. He turned to his right for the hall that was in front of the window and dashed forward, slicing down every guard as he made his way down the hall. After all the guards were dead, he continued his walk, feeling with the force to find Rick's exact location on the second floor. He was in an office. Okay. Using the force, he opened the door to the office. The lights in the office were on, and Rick was sitting behind his desk, his back turned to the door, and his front turned towards the window. No, his front was also turned towards the door. What was the point of saying that? His back was to the door, his front was to the window. It's like, no shit.
Jesus Christ. This author got paid by the word.
Yeah. Palin stood in the doorway for a moment before taking several steps into the office.
"I was wondering what you were doing these past 5 years," Rick said, not turning around. Palin stopped walking and stood in the center of the room. He hum of his lightsaber blade, the only noticeable noise in the room. "I can't let you attack Salvador. Not yet," Palin replied. "Interested in him, are you?" Rick asked, still not turning around to face Palin. "I have a rematch with him that I will see through," Palin answered. "Until then, I cannot allow you to make any moves like this."
Well, one of the two is going to die, and I kind of wonder which one. 'Cause I'm not
I
sure.
know, I can't tell. "So all those years you helped the Guardians mean nothing?" "I only helped because it was entertainment,"
And he literally told you this.
Palin answered. "I am giving you a choice, Rick," he added. "Give up your attack on his main command ship, and you'll live tonight. Persist, and you die tonight." Rick stood up from his chair and faced Palin. "Die?" he repeated. "Me?" "Yes," Palin answered.
One of your characters is probably going to die. Yay.
A metal handle
like
slid
Joe.
from the sleeve of
Sounds like
Rick's
Joe.
shirt. I know Joe had a shorter run than I thought he would have, but that's okay. A metal handle slid from the sleeve of Rick's shirt into his hand, and a red blade ignited from the handle.
In Brittany.
What the?
In Brittany was me, never mind.
Palin asked in surprise. Rick spun forward and swung his blade at Palin's head. He managed to roll out of the reach of the blade just in time. "You're a Sith?" Palin yelled in surprise. Rick turned slowly and stared at Palin, his red blade angled at the ground. "You are not deserving of the title you carry if you could not sense who I really was."
You have armor that prevents
He
you from
stated.
sensing. How would...
Rick lunged forward and stabbed at Palin's chest. Palin pushed the stab aside and attempted to slash at Rick's chest. Rick backflipped out of the slash and threw Palin backwards with the force. "Do not let my age and my aged appearance fool you," Rick said. I am still more powerful and skilled than you." Palin recovered from his throw quickly and sprang to his feet. He charged forward readily to end this fight. All of his attacks were blocked perfectly by Rick. Rick was extremely skilled in power. Not only that, but for his age, he was extremely fast. Some of his attacks came mere inches from landing on Palin. All Palin could do was defend. He had never faced an opponent like this before. Not even Salvador put up this level of a fight 5 years ago, and he doubted that he could do it now either. Palin was completely outmatched in this battle.
Nice.
He had not known that Rick was actually a Sith in disguise as a normal human. If he had known this fact, he could have had a better chance in this fight.
No, you would have still been fighting him.
Within several minutes of fighting, Palin found himself out of breath and could feel his moves slowing, his reaction time getting worse. He suddenly realized something. Your vibranium armor you always
Vibranium,
wore.
I forgot about that.
It's gone,
Fucking vibranium.
he observed. Ah, yes, Rick replied. I figured out a way to remove it once the war started, knowing that something with metal skin couldn't
So
make
he doesn't have his armor anymore.
wouldn't make a good image as president.
So how is he blocking them from figuring out, like, sensing him?
Well,
If
we'll
he doesn't have
see,
his armor anymore.
he explained. I had to look as human as possible. The process was quite painful, actually.
You already looked
He
human.
added.
You hid it under your clothes.
So it was you, Palin replied. You planned the previous president's assassination.
Clearly.
My apprentice actually did that. Smart man, young man he is. Palin fell to one knee, breathing heavily and sweating heavily as well. Rick stood several meters in front of Palin, an evil grin on his face. Rick reached inside his shirt and pulled out some kind of dart and used the force to shoot the small blade into Palin's neck. Palin jumped up and yanked the dart's blade out of his neck and threw it to the ground. He decided that if he were to have any hope of winning, he needed to unleash all of his massive power at once, in a storm of pure dark side energy. He quickly gathered everything he had inside him and threw his hand out to unleash the storm of raw power. Nothing happened. Oh, you've been vaccinated, you idiot.
Yeah.
You're gonna die now.
Can't you tell that nothing's gathering if... Because he shouldn't be able to gather
Right,
any energy.
there's no more midichlorians. He has nothing. He pushed harder and hard, but nothing happened. But, I'm sorry.
But, like, they're like, oh, we're gonna have him try and attack, but it's like he'd be able to sense that nothing's happening before he actually tried to attack.
Right, like, this is nothing. This is literally nothing new. So, the force would no longer come to him when he called. What's going on? He screamed in frustration. I wanted to test it on a powerful Sith, Rick replied, shutting down his lightsaber blade. What did you do? Palin shouted back. I severed your connection to the Force, Rick replied, with the vaccine. Well, Palin was cut short by a cascade of lightning that shot out from Rick's fingers and engulfed him. Palin fell to the ground and started to squirm, flop, and scream it with pain. This is the true power of the dark side. Oh, that's a Palpatine line.
It seems like it's taking a long time for him to die from that lightning. Usually it's like we hit him with Sith lightning and he died at the end. Now it's like, oh, he's flopping and squirming, and how long is he going to live? He doesn't even have the Force.
I know. Rick yelled over the crackling of the lightning and Palin screams. You thought you had power? This is power! The entire room was now filled with lightning created by the dark side of the Force. The room was being torn apart by the lightning bolts. After several seconds, the lightning vanished from the room. The electricity could still be felt surging through the air. Rick stood staring at Palin's dead body. Darth Salvador will soon be joining you soon enough.
Shall be joining you soon. Interesting.
Well, they brought Palin back to kill him.
Yeah, he's been gone for like multiple chapters, and he disappears. And
they were like, all right, we had to... they're like, oh, that's a loose end. We should wrap up real quick. On it. Oh, he died. Here we go.
Like, oh, this is a guy that beat Salvador, so we have to show that Rick is more powerful than the guy who beat Salvador.
Because now we need to be worried about Salvador, but I was already worried about Salvador because I don't feel like he has plot armor.
Yeah. Which is kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. I feel like there's a good chance he could die.
Yeah, there are aspects of this story that are actually pretty interesting.
Like the fact that all the characters...
Like, oh my god, they're all stupid.
That's true. Oh god, it's so true. Some of them are so dumb.
Which might also be part... No, it's not. It's just them being stupid.
it's just these characters are kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I'll let you can read up until... Yeah.
Chapter 52. The final battle begins. Guess already. The mist slowly descended on upon Salvador. The mist was as white as he had ever seen. Everything it covered turned white, until all around him he was surrounded by nothing but white. His black suit, the only source of color other than white.
I see. Okay. Cool.
He used the white 4 times
in one sentence.
Salvador was confused by the sudden mist, and was, for the first time in over 5 years, a little intimidated and startled by it. He walked through the whiteness and kept walking, trying to find a way out. He tried reaching out with the Force, but he could not touch the Force anymore. Is this a nightmare or something? Had he become human? Where was he? These questions raced through his mind, with no answer trailing behind them. The one thing he had, and was glad he still had it, was his lightsaber, which dangled from his belt around his waist. He kept on walking, his black cape flowing behind him as he increased his pace in frustration. His frustration was quickly turning into anger at the situation.
"Where am I?" he growled through his mask into the distance. His voice echoed all around him, giving no hint of an exit or any other life. He stopped walking and turned in a circle, still hoping to see an opening in the whiteness. He suddenly heard footsteps behind him and whipped around, unclipping his lightsaber from his belt and flicking the red blade on. He could see a figure in the whiteness that slowly got bigger as it got closer.
You've already killed me once. I can't die a second time, the figure replied at the activation of his lightsaber. Do you remember this voice?
I do. Oh, I totally do. Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Anyways, as the figure got closer, the figure became more apparent. Whoever it was had a slim body and was at least half a meter shorter than Salvador.
Wow.
As the figure got within 8 meters of him, his body froze. It was Brittany who emerged from the misty background. She looked as beautiful as when she died, and she had not aged a day since then. Duh, she's a ghost.
Wow.
Wary of a trap of some kind, he kept his blade ready to strike at the first sign of trouble or act of hostility. Behind his mask, he opened his mouth twice to try and say something, but no words came out. Is this going to be like, is he going to turn towards the light?
Oh my god.
That'd be kind of
Is
stupid.
this Salvador's redemption arc?
So he stopped trying and waited for her to speak. She stopped at the end of his lightsaber's reach and studied him carefully. She tilted her head to one side for a moment to take in his appearance. "You sure look different," she finally stated, placing one of her hands on her hip. Salvador did not reply or move. "It's been over 5 years since I died, hasn't it?" she asked, looking at his masked face. "Only 5 years. Yet you've changed like it was a lifetime ago," she added.
"To me it was," he finally said.
"What happened to you?" she asked, taking a step closer to his lightsaber blade. "Mike, what happened to the man I loved?" she asked, taking a step forward. Closer. Salvador stood stiff as Brittany touched his lightsaber blade, deactivating it. Taking several steps closer, did she touch the hilt? Because the blade is...
I think she's got like ghost powers, and it's just like...
deactivated. Taking several steps closer, she put her hands on his helmet. She slowly started to remove it, but was stopped by his hands shooting up and grabbing her wrists.
"Don't," he told her.
So dramatic. "You never let anyone see your face anymore," she said. "Why?" He increased his hold on her wrist as she tried to slowly move his helmet off.
"Don't," he repeated this time with more menace behind his voice.
Oh, I was thinking of like tears or something. He should be like crying by now. Be like,
Yeah.
I don't want you to see me like this.
We'll see. We'll see how this goes. This is interesting.
"If you're increasing your grip, you can do that all you want," she replied. "When you die, pain is the only thing you don't feel," she added. Nice.
Oh.
Realizing that she was not reacting to his increased grip, he pushed her away several feet. He pulled his helmet full back on his head and stared at her.
So he took it off, or is it on?
On.
Okay. "You're dead. How can I be seeing and feeling you?" he asked.
"Because I am breaking the rules," she answered.
Oh, is that your explanation? Why could she break the rules?
"The dead are not allowed to communicate to the living like this, but I can't hold myself back any longer." So they can, but they aren't allowed to, so they don't. I don't know.
Who tells them they can?
Who knows? God.
God. He'll smite you for this.
Yeah. 5 years is more than I thought it'd be. I'd be able to hold back, she explained.
"Where are we?"
"We're at the border of the life of the living and the life of the dead," she answered. "You can call this purgatory if you want to.
How did they get here?
It's essentially the same thing. No life whatsoever aside from those like me who use it to communicate with the living like this," she explained.
Why?
But if
How do you get there?
If people do it, then it's not really breaking the rules.
Oh, jeez.
She pulled him there or something.
"Why did you bring me here?" he demanded. "Tell me."
"To have one final talk with you before it ends," she answered.
"Before what ends?"
"This war you've started," she answered. "It's about to end, and I want to talk to you one more time in case you're to die during the final battle," she added.
"I will not die," he shot back. "I am Darth Salvador. Death is nothing to me."
So is she saying that he's not going to come to where she is when he dies, or what?
I don't know. Yeah, he's probably going straight
Regardless
to
of
hell.
how powerful you are, Mike, she began, the one thing that you and the normal humans share is death.
"Don't call me that."
And like 99.99999% of your genes, besides
Right.
like the midichlorians.
"Don't call me that," he snarled back. That name is pointless to me now, he yelled.
You're dead to me. If it's so pointless, then why do you react by yelling when you hear it? She asked. If it's so pointless, then you should not care if someone calls you by it. I mean, not really, but okay. Behind his mask, he gritted his teeth and clenched his right hand into a fist out of frustration. The truth is, you still love that name, she continued, but you just hate it when people call you by it because it reminds you of the person you were and the person you've become, she added. Salvador shot forward and wrapped his black leather-gloved hand tightly around her throat. Dang, why are you attacking him? This is your love of your life. Dude, the girl...
Not anymore.
The woman that you killed everyone over her death, pretty much.
Well, he's changed, man. It's been 5 years.
Whatever. I told you, she replied to his move. I feel no pain and clearly can't feel death anymore. Can't be killed twice. You already said this. Salvador's arm began to shake as he increased his grip as much as he could. He could feel her throat beyond his gloved hand, but he couldn't do anything to shut her up. Why was he, Darth Salvador, so powerless right now? She placed her hand on his trembling, outstretched arm and gently squeezed it. She reached out with her other arm and touched his helmet. She wrapped her fingers around the bottom to lift it off when she felt something wet hit her fingers. Is he crying? She slowly lifted the helmet off his head to look at his face. What she what she saw betrayed what the helmet and black suit and armor represented. She saw a man with tears running down his face. She saw a man having a deep inner struggle within him at the moment. She saw a man who was broken but used power to conceal that broken part of himself. She saw, inside his yellow eyes, not evil or power as others would see in them, but she saw fear hidden behind his hatred and anger. She saw the man she loved when she died. She saw Mike Moore deep inside those eyes, trying to break free of the man he had become. Releasing his grip, Salvador fell to his knees, his armor suit clanking with the ground as he fell. His arms dropped to his sides, and his head slumped over. Tears hitting the ground he now knelt on. Brittany got down on her knees in front of him and sucked his dick. No. I'm kidding.
I'm ready. Here we go.
Breaking the dramatic tension. No, I'm kidding. Brittany got down on her knees in front of him and placed her hands on his armor-plated shoulders. Please, she whispered. You've become no different from the monsters who killed your parents. Turn back now, while there's still a small piece of you left to cling to. She pleaded with him.
I think he's gonna die.
At the end of it?
This seems
Possibly.
like a moment of weakness that could easily cost him his life.
Possibly, yeah. He looked up at her, into her beautiful eyes that he had spent hours gazing at when they lived back home in Riversville.
All right!
That's what it was called. She moved her hands from his shoulders and placed them gently on his face. She slowly moved her head closer, and their lips met. All the memories of their time together came rushing back into Salvador's mind. Is he going to turn to the light, and then...
We'll see.
Is Crystal still going to kill him, or is she going to join him now that he's all light again?
Oh, let's see.
He suddenly realized how much he missed her touch, her voice, her eyes, her presence, her kiss. He moved his gloved hands and placed them on her waist, pulling her closer. He could feel his power returning to him as they continued to kiss each other more deeply. With the return of his power, he knew what he had to do, what he must do in order to ensure a good ending to this war. Her return to him like this had opened up his eyes to what must be done.
As you said in the last 3 sentences repeatedly.
So, I mean, part of his power when he was first starting was that he was equally connected to the light and the dark.
That's true.
So is he going to be able to fight Rick on equal terms because he has both of them?
Maybe.
Now?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because with just the light, I mean, the dark, he's not as connected, possibly, and he might lose.
I don't know what kind of twist they're going for, but I can tell that they want to go for a twist.
Yeah. Calling upon the Force, Salvador yanked his lightsaber to his hand, and in an instant he leapt to his feet and spun around in a circle, clicking his red blade on. In one swift motion, he took off Brittany's head.
Why?
Killed her. Her body fell to the ground, and her head rolled to Salvador's booted feet. He stood towering over her head, staring down at it with his yellow eyes. He used the Force to pull his helmet into his hands and placed it back over his head.
I am Darth Salvador.
So he made a choice and chose the dark, I guess. Dang.
Dark Lord of the Sith and bringer of the end of normal human life. You cannot change that, he added. The mist that hung around him began to lift, and he found himself sitting in his chambers, his fist resting on his cheek. Had it all been a dream? No. He answered himself. It was too real to be a dream. That really happened. He could feel the sun rising outside of his docked command ship. It was time to end this war. Brittany was right about one thing. The end of the war was upon him, and he would seize it and command it. Seize it and command it. This would be the final day of the war, the final day of normal human life. He stood up from his chair and walked out of his chambers into the corridors of the ship and to the final battle of the war.
If he's so set on that, why would he be so emotional earlier, honestly?
I don't know.
I mean, to make it twist, obviously, but it was an interesting choice.
The beheading was, a choice. A very big choice.
Be like, hey, I killed you on purpose this time. Damn.
Boom.
Chapter 53. Real name. Is he gonna find out he was Mike or whatever?
Maybe.
Rick pulled on his armor that he had been given. He would personally be part of this final attack on the Force Army. Why? You're the leader of the world.
No, I get behind leaders who are willing to fight their own wars.
Yeah.
I think if the leader's willing to die in this war, it must be worth fighting.
Yeah, but would they let him?
They should, because, he's the one who initiated it.
Yeah.
You should be willing to die for this if you're going to make everyone else fight for it.
Yeah. He could feel that the world's army was surprised at his decision to accompany them on this battle. He would reveal who he really was to them during this battle. Really?
Oh, he would have to.
I guess, but would they still fight for you if you're like, hey, I'm a Force user and I'm making you kill all the other Force users because they're all evil because they're Force users? Except me, I'm a good Force user.
I don't know. I think this might be a bad
None of the
idea
other
on his
Force,
part.
yeah, none of them are good people. Just me, leading you guys after tricking you into putting you in this position. Rick pulled on his armor that he blah blah blah.
Yeah,
if he was to fight Darth Salvador one-on-one, then he would have no other choice than to reveal his power. Could he lie to them and be like, hey, I gave myself a connection to the Force with this secret project?
I don't know, because then you'd have to have proof of a secret project, because people would be like...
It's a secret!
I mean, I don't know.
He straightened his forearm armor, then checked his shoulder armor to make sure it was in place correctly. He didn't need to check his armor. He didn't even need to wear it, but until the last moment, he had to keep up his normal human face to them. Hidden underneath his armor was his lightsaber hilt that felt very tightly and comfortably between the armor and shirt he wore under the armor.
Of course. Armor.
And they said armor, too. He stood up and walked out of the equipment room. He was met by a military-clothed man. Are you sure you want to come with us, sir? He asked, concerned. This battle promises to be the fiercest battle this world has ever seen, he added. Fight raged on for a century. Many lives are clear. Anyways.
What?
The ultimate showdown, ultimate
test. That.
Rick gave an encouraging smile.
I'm sure, my boy, he answered. I shall be fine, and we shall be driven to victory by your commitment to justice.
It was the fiercest battle the world ever saw.
The soldier smiled back.
Salvador's command ship has just lifted off and is now stationary at over 500,000 feet, sir, the soldier said. We're readying our command ship for launch as well. Everyone is prepared for this battle.
Good, Rick replied. Go and make sure the command ship will be able to launch within 5 minutes, he ordered. The soldiers saluted and then ran off. Lord Ravage! Rick's apprentice greeted it kneeling... Oh, sorry, that's you.
His name is Ravage? Rick Ravage.
Rick Ravage.
What was his last name? I'm assuming he had a different last name, but this...
Sorry, I stole your line. I saw Rick's and I was like, okay.
Lord Ravage! Rick's apprentice greeted, kneeling down in front of him.
Your skills for stealth have increased, Rick commented. Very impressive.
What shall you have me do during this attack, Lord Ravage? His apprentice asked.
Salvador will be mine to kill. You will kill his sister Stacy, Rick answered.
So he knows that he's Mike, I guess.
Yes.
The women who accompanied him while trying to take Crystal? He asked.
Correct, Rick answered. He was suddenly struck with an idea. As a matter of fact, have Crystal fight Stacy first. If she fails to kill her, then finish the job, He altered his orders.
I understand, he replied, bowing his head.
Do not fail me, apprentice, Rick warned. During this battle, failure is no option and will not be tolerated.
If he fails, he dies, so it doesn't really matter. I understand, my master, his apprentice replied, standing up and walking off. Rick's true name, the one he lived by in secret, was Darth Ravage, a name that suited his power and strength.
That's dumb, but okay.
Rick walked along the hall toward the command deck of the command ship. When he entered, everyone saluted briefly, then went back to their jobs, which was currently to get the ship flying.
Of course.
He could feel the engines of the ship firing up. Sir, we're ready to lift off, one of the commanders informed him.
Do it,
he ordered. With a nod, the commander ordered... Oh, yes. With a nod, the commander ordered the entire command deck to lift off. Looking out the front viewport, the outside began to drift downward as the ship drifted upward. The massive command ship rose slowly at first, but picked up speed as it increased in height. It took about 15 minutes for the entire ship to get over 100,000 feet in the air.
How long is that? 100,000 feet.
Once it had breached the 100,000 bar, they could see in the distance a massive object in the sky above them. Their radars and scanners detected it more than their eyes. Oh, Lindsay, I'm sorry. There's a line.
Is a random soldier again?
Yeah.
Eyes. Salvador's command ship, one of the soldiers whispered to himself. The scanners were showing that the ship was massively huge, maybe even slightly bigger than their ship. They began moving upward at a quicker pace.
Get everyone ready,
Rick told the commander.
We begin our attack the moment we are within firing range,
he said. The commander walked over and ordered the entire ship to prepare for attack. For pilots to get to their crabs and for their boarding ships to start loading up.
This is it,
Rick whispered to himself as Salvador's ship became bigger as they got closer.
Time to end this.
Sir, we're in firing range now, one of the soldiers reported.
Then commence the attack,
Rick ordered.
To ever doing 4 chapters, that could have been good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well.
But also, they're 19 miles in the air, I guess.
Okay. Cool.
Chapter 54. The Apocalypse Begins. Dang.
Ooh, that is an intense...
The world's army command ship is approaching, a soldier blurted out over his view screen. Behind him, on the top of the command deck, stood Darth Salvador. So this is on the... This is... Okay.
Yeah, we're on the Salvador
The world's
ship.
army is approaching.
Yes.
Behind him in the command deck stood Darth Salvador, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. He watched on the monitor as the world's army command ship drew closer and closer. I just kind of want everyone to die at this point.
Yeah, we'll see.
They should just kill each other, and the world should just be like, okay, great, let's start over, I guess. Behind his mask, a grin spread across his face. So it begins at last. The end of it all. Random operator. Activating the deflection shields, an operator said, hitting a series of buttons. Salvador turned his back to the room and began to walk to the door leading out of the deck area when he paused next to the commander.
Kill them all when they attack, he told him. The commander nodded his approval and marched off towards the edge of the command deck to start barking out orders. Salvador exited the room and started to make his way down the hall. He needed to prepare if he was to be the one to end this war. Red lights started to blink in the hallways and an alarm sounded throughout the ship, signaling everyone to prepare for the coming battle. Moment later, Salvador could feel laser blasts hitting the shields of the ship. The battle had begun. He picked up his pace down the hall when Stacy came running out of another hallway and right in his way. He stopped as she stumbled in his path. She stared up at his masked face and quickly realized that she had made a mistake that had cost many others their life. She had made a mistake that had cost many others their life. They crossed Salvador's path. "Come with me," he ordered as he walked past her. Confused, she followed Salvador down the hall, and they stopped outside a door that had been marked off limits and had several layers of encrypted codes that had to be entered to gain entry to. Salvador began to type on the password pad that was outside the door to the right side. He entered a series of combinations into the keypad until Stacy heard the door start to slide open. Salvador stepped inside, and Stacy followed, but at a slower pace. They entered a room of complete darkness. She heard a switch flip, and the door slammed shut behind them, and an overhead light lit up the entire room.
Dramatic.
It was a massive room filled with old scrolls that she had never seen before. The scrolls seemed centuries old, but had not one piece of dust on them, at least none that she could see.
How did he get them all there?
I don't know.
Did he just go take it from the random Sith base?
Probably. He had 5 years, so
True.
probably. Salvador walked over to the far wall and grabbed a scroll from the shelf and started walking towards the door where Stacy still stood,
But also,
looking
why
around.
does he have it on the command ship that's going to go into the war? Wouldn't you have
So
it,
he has ready
somewhere at a
access
base
to
or
it?
something?
I don't know. I don't know.
Scan it, turn it into an e-reader.
Technology's so advanced, I don't know. What is this place? She asked him as he approached. My study, Salvador
Study.
answered. This, he held up the scroll he had grabbed, is going to end this war once and for all. How? By killing all the normal humans in one massive attack that would cover the entire world, he answered. Why did you show me this? She asked, still confused.
The better question is, why hasn't he showed you this before now?
Right. You have earned the right to see this room, he answered, and to use it once this war is over. The knowledge that these scrolls contain is infinite, as is the power one can achieve by their teachings, he explained. When this battle is over,
pretty finite.
this room will be yours to do with as you please, he added.
Because I think I'm going to die.
I think it's gonna kill him. Really? She asked. Yes, he answered. Now focus on the battle at hand so the Sith can finally prevail, he ordered. Go and assist the others. Yes, Lord Salvador! She replied, turning and running out of the room. He waited until she was out of the room, then closed the door and activated the locking mechanism on the door, sealing himself in. He opened the scroll and rolled it out like a roll of toilet paper on the floor.
Why? What does that even mean?
That's such a silly analogy. That's silly.
Yeah.
He spread it in front of him so he could read the text clearly.
On the floor.
He got down on his right knee.
Do you not have a table?
Look, he does all his best thinking on the floor, looking at things like toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
He got down on his right knee and lowered his head to stare at the scroll. He began to whisper a chant that the scroll held in its unrolled form.
Don't you need crystal for this?
I don't know. Aboard the World Army's command ship, Rick watched as aerial fighters from both sides blew each other out of the sky in front of him.
Pew, pew.
He stood on the command deck, his hands on the railing of the upper level of the deck.
I kind of want to pull up like a YouTube video of like a Star Wars battle and have him playing in the background.
Oh, that's exactly what's happening, and you know it. The Force Army had responded to their attack instantly by launching a wave of aerial fighters along with laser blasts from their own ship at the World Army's ships. Rick closed his eyes and focused. He could feel an extremely strong mass of dark side energy being formed inside the ship. No, it was outside the ship. Suddenly, his eyes shot open and darted to directly above Salvador's ship. Barely noticeable to the human eye during all this commotion and battle, Rick saw a vortex beginning to open in the sky.
Cool, cool.
The vortex was not noticeable mostly due to its colorless nature. The only clue to the vortex existence that Rick could see visually was that a piece of the sky was beginning to swirl and turn steadily darker. He could also feel a mass of dark energy forming inside it.
Impossible,
He muttered to himself.
Salvador doesn't have crystal. How could he do it?
He asked himself.
Is he that powerful on the dark side that he can do it without the light? Or is she attempting this out of desperation, and he really does not need...
Does not crystal.
And he really does not crystal.
Probably does need crystal.
Luckily, his voice was so low that only he could hear himself. If Salvador attempted this ritual without the second piece of... then the ritual would quickly become unstable and destroy everything. He needed to get that ship and get to that ship and kill Salvador before he killed them all with his foolishness. He whipped around and marched off the deck. He needed to get over there now. He ordered a battalion of soldiers to follow him as he marched down the hall and into the hangar bay of the command ship. He led them to one of their boarding crafts, and they all boarded, as you do. The transport lifted off the ground and rocketed out of the hangar and into the sea of lasers and missiles that lit up the sky. Rick took control of the ship, using the Force to guide him through the sea of battle to his target. He had to do some tough maneuvering to get around many laser blasters and rockets that came spinning by the ship.
So aren't the people who are supposed to be steering the ship kind of concerned? Like, hey, we're just flying now,
I don't know. They trust Rick, dude.
But they don't know that he's doing it.
I
Because they
don't
don't know that
know.
he is the Force.
Finally, Salvador's ship's hangar became visible. He took the ship right into the hangar without slowing down.
What?
He dangerous.
Drive straight to the hangar.
He keyed the landing gear on once inside the hangar and brought the ship down. The moment they exited the hangar was suddenly alive with blaster fire and the glow of lightsabers. Deciding the time to remain secret had come to an end, Rick pulled out his lightsaber and activated the blade. He cut down everyone that crossed his path as he marched through the hangar towards the closest door. He exited the hangar and walked into a hallway where he was almost kicked over by a girl running. The girl spun on her heel around him and pulled out a lightsaber and clicked on the blade. This is Stacy, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Looks like it.
You're not one of us! She said, pointing the blade at his neck.
You know the faces of every single Sith?
I guess. Oh. Her red blade was knocked aside by another red blade wielded by a young man who had come flying through the doorway that Rick had just walked through.
Leave her to me, Master, he said, standing between him and the girl.
Kill her, undying!
He ordered.
Such a stupid name.
As he marched off down the hall, he would leave Stacy for his apprentice while he dealt with Salvador, as what marching off down the hall implies.
Yep.
As he made his way down another hall, cutting down everyone he saw, he could feel the vortex above the ship beginning to gain enough power to start affecting everything around it. He didn't have much time left. He stopped outside a door where he could feel the most dark energy emanating from. Using the dark side, he blasted the metal door to bits and saw Salvador knelt in front of a scroll. Salvador shot up to his feet and spun around. You, he said, pointing a finger at Rick.
He points a finger at people so often. I just imagine it being like, you.
You.
You can't see us. The listeners.
Darth Ravage,
Rick replied, holding out his lightsaber in attack position.
your executioner.
Dramatic.
Salvador unclipped his lightsaber and activated the blade. If you've come to stop it, it's too late, he said through his mask.
Ooh.
This world will now feel the wrath of the dark side and be sucked into oblivion. The apocalypse has begun.
Ooh, end of the chapter. Good place to end.
That's it. That's the penultimate episode.
Thought of it. I figured these chapters would take longer towards the end, but they
Apparently not. Maybe the ending was rushed. Maybe that's the implication. You know?
Or have we
I
been
know.
reading 5 chapters? I don't know.
No. Well, 4 or 5. We usually.
Yeah. somewhere around
Whatever. Anywho,
there. Dramatic.
that's it. We are gonna go into
Who
the
will win? You decide.
America, vote now. I guess predictions are welcome. You could also be reading faster than we are, but
I might have read ahead. You never know.
I don't know. The exciting conclusion is coming up, y'all, so you don't want to miss it. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. We have awesome new content that comes out every day. And yeah, if you have a fic you would like us to read after this fic is over, please leave it in the comments down below because we are exactly 1 episode away from the end of this fic.
And if you don't tell us one, we'll pick one, and that has sometimes ended badly.
But some of them have been really good. Shrek Jesus. Remember that?
Did we actually read
We
that?
read that for a Christmas special.
Oh, yeah.
Happy holidays.
What's our Christmas special this year gonna be? Ooh.
I don't know.
Find out later.
Find out later. Yeah, just thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Tune in next week for the exciting finale of Star Wars: The New Galaxy. And until then, stay awesome, read more smart. Bye-bye.
Bye.